Parity 10-year strategy 2018 to 2028. So how many more years do we have? We have about 5 years. So it's important that we are taking this concrete step now in Uganda. Uganda joined a growing number of countries that have undergone these barrier assessments around the world, such as Ghana, Senegal, Zambia, Bangladesh, Jordan, Uruguay, amongst other countries. This fund primarily offers assistance and incentives for troop and police contributing countries such as Uganda to identify and overcome the barriers to deployment of trained and qualified uniformed women peacekeepers. The UPF has benefited from support worth 232,000 this shillings plus, and this has enabled us to conduct this barrier assessment on the impediments to Uganda Police Force participation in peacekeeping operations. While working in partnership with UN Women for the project implementation, in March 2022, UPF contracted Makerere University to conduct the required barrier assessment on its behalf. This lasted about 3 months, and today we are here to launch the report, to hear more about the findings and recommendations, and understand the implications for progress in this area. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, while we acknowledge that over the years we have witnessed significant progress in terms of increasing women's participation in Uganda Police Force, it is, however, important to note that these achievements have to be sustained, not only sustained, but also deepened and scaled up. We have new issues every day, as we all saw during the COVID era, where there were serious security issues facing different countries across the world. And these issues continue to undermine women's participation in peace building. We are warned that the effect of disregarding required commitments to women's peace and security would be harmful in the long run for women and drastic for world peace. Ladies and gentlemen, this launch is not only a gathering to consolidate success and highlight challenges identified by the study, but also to inspire and motivate all of us to accelerate implementation of women and security agenda. There is an expression that I love when we talk about research and evidence generation and data and statistics. What is not counted does not count. So unless we research, identify the numbers and the issues and the gaps, we will not be able to make informed decisions. That is why this does not matter. Once research pins down the issues, then decision makers are obliged to take actions that are in line with those statistics that have been uncovered. I encourage us all, therefore, within our capacities, to demand that women are meaningfully represented in peace processes to enable us to achieve the inclusive and sustainable peace that we all envision and so badly need. We have choices to make. The right ones are clear and compelling and place women at the heart of women's peace and security agenda. While the recommendations from this report provide a rationale to advance in this area, I think we will all have the strong resolve and the courage to harness the gains we have made and also prepare us for the second phase of the LC initiative. It will also be an inspiration for the other security agencies to come on board. Why is it important? increase of women's participation in global peacekeeping operations has been shown through research to improve the effectiveness and the stability of peace missions. So if we want to improve the effectiveness of peace missions, we must include both men and women. Male are more likely to achieve their mandate and to bring about sustainable peace. And this is very important to our assignments. As I conclude, I want to reaffirm UN Women on shaken commitment to work with all relevant actors in finding the change of direction and forging a new path forward. Our sincere appreciation once more goes to UPF, represented here by the Deputy General Inspector of Police, and as well as Makerere University, the Peace Center, as well as LC Initiative, which have joined us from the US, which have been a part of the planning, and I congratulate them for a job well done. Many thanks to everyone and to my colleagues as well, who have spent their time and effort in bringing this to pass. Thank you very much and happy discussion.
Thank you very much, Ms. Adekemi, once again for UN Women. Thank you very much. I would like to request, sir, our chief guest, that you allow me to continue recognizing protocol. Thank you. We have amongst us the Secretary for Uganda Police Force, Mr. Winnie Abe. Thank you very much for being supportive to us also. I would also like to recognize the presence of Madam Anna Kusina, Senior Commissioner of Police. She's here with us. Commissioner of Police Kulaije Hilary is also here with us. Commissioner of Police Biamgisha is here with us. Commissioner of Police Mary Irene Kamara, you're welcome. Commissioner of Police Chibika Sarah, you're welcome. Commissioner of Police Akwango Esther, so welcome. We also have Assistant Commissioners of Police. We have Assistant Police Abol Hele, welcome. We have Assistant Commissioner of Police Nisima Donam, Assistant Commissioner of Police Nahira Rose is here with us, and Assistant Commissioner of Police Naroga Susan is also here with us. So we have representation from other units. The officers are here. They are senior officers. Forgive me if I don't recognize each one of you. It's because of time, and I don't want. Forgive me if I don't recognize each one of you. It's because of time, and I don't want to take a lot of time on this. Thank you very much for coming and attending this program. So I would like to invite now a report or remarks from the LC Initiative Fund. You're invited to watch on the screen. Thank you. Thank you.
Inspector General of the Uganda Police Force, the Assistant Inspector General of Police, representatives from the Government of Uganda, ambassadors and representatives from the diplomatic community, representatives from Makerere University, UN Women Country Representative, Uganda, staff of UN Women, members of the Uganda Police Force, distinguished guests, ladies, gentlemen, and fellow peacekeepers. My name is Deborah Warren-Smith, and I'm the member of the Initiative Fund for Uniformed Women in Peace Operations, or the EIF. It really is a privilege to be present today at Uganda's official launch of the Uganda Police Force report on the results of the Measuring Opportunities for Women in Peace Operations, the MOAP assessment, which is a comprehensive study of barriers and opportunities for women in the Uganda Police Force funded by the EIF. Globally, women have been significantly underrepresented across all while the numbers of women deployed as either a member of a formed police unit or as an individual police officer has been above the United Nations targets set out in the Uniformed Gender Parity Strategy since 2018, current numbers are starting to plateau. So we cannot, as an international community, afford to take our foot off the accelerator until all barriers to women's, and this includes barriers that prevent women from deploying to United Nations peace operations. We must also collectively continue to strive for gender equality in peace operations as an important goal in and of itself. Women and men must have an equal right to participate in United Nations peace operations. Uganda is a strong contributor to international peace and security, with a commitment to UN peacekeeping operations dating back to 2004. The Ugandan police force has shown strong leadership in the implementation of a gender policy and strategy as a first step to engendering the Ugandan police force structure and increasing the number of women police officers within the national police force. The Uganda Police Force report on the barriers and opportunities that is being launched today demonstrates this ongoing strong commitment from the Uganda Police Force to identify and understand the barriers to women's participation in UN peace operations, specifically from the Ugandan Police Force context. And I commend the Ugandan Police Force for their courage and leadership in committing to undergo this detailed assessment. This evidence-based barrier assessment is designed to also highlight the existing good practices that the Uganda Police Force and is already undertaking, good practices that can be shared and adapted to other security institutions, nationally, regionally, and globally. One of these good practices, I believe, is especially important to highlight, is that the Uganda Police Force has already adopted specific measures designed to increase women's participation and engagement within the National Police Force, being the Gender Equality Strategy 2022 to 2025. This strategy includes a number of affirmative action measures, including the requirement to ensure a quota of 30% of women are included in recruitment, and this is conducted in each district and region. The report also provides a number of evidence-based recommendations designed to address some of the root causes that prevent or hinder uniformed women from deploying to peace operations, including the requirement to develop a clear and coherent strategy to counter in the security sector and peacekeeping missions, including through community outreach sessions that target the wider community. And in fact, other ELSI initiative funded projects that are engaging in community outreach activities are reporting a positive and lasting impact on communities and their perceptions about the National Police Force. In addition to Uganda's study, the ELSI Initiative Fund is also supporting several other troop and police contributing countries to undergo a similar NOAP assessment, with the aim for the knowledge and good practices gained from these projects to contribute to the global conversation about increasing uniformed women's meaningful participation in peace operations. The fund also provides project funding for countries to design and implement projects to address those barriers identified and to drive a sustained increase in the pace of change of uniformed women's deployment to peace operations. The ELSI Initiative Fund is a United Nations multi-donor trust fund we were established by the United Nations, Canada, and member states in 2019. We see ourselves as an innovative and multilateral fund designed to increase the sustainable employment and meaningful participation of uniformed women in peace operations, and to accelerate progress towards achieving the United Nations targets set out in the UGPS. A fund such as ours, however, is only possible with the very generous support of our donors, being Australia, Canada, Denmark, Finland, Germany, the Netherlands, Norway, the Republic of Korea, and the United Kingdom, for which we are very grateful. At this stage, I would also like to acknowledge the support that UN Women Uganda Country Office has provided to the implementation of this project, as well as the researchers and enumerators from Makerere University. And also, I would very much like to acknowledge the women and men of the Ugandan Police Force for your personal contributions, your thoughtful responses, and for your time during the survey and contributing to the MOAB report. A very warm thank you. And lastly, I commend the report and the reading of it to you all. I would also like you to challenge you to reflect on its recommendations and to identify innovative and sustainable solutions and a way forward to concretely address the identified barriers. Thank you very much to each and every one of you, and I wish the Uganda Police Force every success in implementing the recommendations from this report. Good morning.
Thank you very much, the FC Initiative Fund, for those remarks. And thank you very much for the support. We really appreciate it. Guests of honor, amidst us, we also have Senior Commissioner of Police, Tanoi Stephen, who is the KMP Commander. You're welcome, sir. And we have Assistant Commissioner of Police, Mastura Kugonza. I would also like to say that the Makerere University came along with a team. They did not come alone. There is a team behind there that's been working on the report, and they will present to us. You're welcome. And then we also have Diana Aguma from UN Women. I recognized your representative, but you're here physically as well. We also have Ellen Nankunda from UN Women. You're welcome. We have Namud Hadija. You're welcome. You're welcome. And Namud is also from UN Women. You're very welcome. Please allow me, sir, to welcome Makerere University to give us the presentation on the key issues of the report. You're welcome, Professor.
A very good morning, friends. I stand here to already observed. It is with great joy and honor that I stand before you this morning to share some of our findings from the MOAB report. I need to be projecting it. ICT support. All right, as they put up the report, allow me to start by telling a little story of how we got here. I would like to really thank the Uganda Police Force. The activity that we have just carried out is not a new activity. It is part of our long-time partnership with the Uganda Police Force through the Senior Command and Staff College in Bwebaja. Makerere University has an MOU with Uganda Police Force, which we dearly treasure. And we thank you for all the trust. As you'll see, the kind of study that we carried out sides in order for it to succeed. As I wait for them to project, I can already start. The report presents 10 key issue areas. It presents 10 issue areas in accordance with the MOWIP. Report. MOWIP is a methodology that was developed by the DCAF in partnership with the University of Cornell. However, what happened is that Makerere University, together with the Uganda Police Force Peace Support Office, came together, localized the tools that are used. Reason being that we had to speak to our context. I would like to let you know, Deputy IGP, that I was approached in October last year when Uganda Police Force put up the expression of interest and UN Women. I was approached by Senior Commissioner Moro, who is not here, and SP Auma Sylvia, to make sure that we carry this on, and we have carried on, and as we speak, the team is led by SSP Ojando Robert. Would like to thank you, and I would like to personally thank the Director of Operations, who physically took part, actually, in making sure that everything is in order and everything is as is. So as they project, I would like to bring to the attention that out of the 10 issue areas, and these 10 issue areas we were looking at issues around the eligible pool. Has the Uganda Police Force got enough women in the force to ensure that they deploy in peace operations? We looked at the deployment criteria. What is that criteria that is followed for these women to be engaged in peace support operations? We also looked at the deployment selection. Deployment criteria has to do with the criteria, and has to do with us, how do we select them? And what is the process that we go through? And then we looked at household constraints. And I say this and then pause a little bit, because you'll realize as I carry on that household constraints actually were the highest barriers to women's engagement in peace support operations. And then we looked at the peace operations infrastructure. And when we looked at this infrastructure, we are looking at it when they go, how is it over there? And then we looked at the peace operations experience. What do these stories mean to those who would wish to go? And then we had the career value. Career value had to do with when those people engage in peace operations, are they promoted on that line, or it does not count? We shall be explaining more about it. Then we looked at the top-down leadership. How is the top-down leadership in terms of support? Do they support the process or they don't? And then we had the gender roles, and then lastly, the social exclusion. I would request that you project the issue area number 1. Issue area number 1. Okay, the eligible pool. I'm not sure at what, but hopefully we shall get them. It's important for me to note that we had a survey from 434 police officers, and then we also had 31 key informant interviews. That's very important, and these were spanning all the way from the headquarters and elsewhere. Of the 10 issue areas, we had 5 areas with what we call high significancy barriers. And this means that these really affect women. And these included the eligible pool, deployment criteria, deployment selection, household constraints, and the gender roles. Those were high barriers. There are other areas which were medium, peace operations experiences, top-down and top-down leadership. And then career value, peace operations infrastructure, and social exclusion were really low barrier. Immediately, I will run already sent, only 28% of them have been women. And on issue area number 1, which is eligible pool, we're looking at how many women are in the Uganda Police Force. Out of the 50,366, only 19% are women, and the rest are men. So how is this a high barrier? It means that if you have only 19%, when there is a call for taking part in peace operations, definitely the men will outnumber the women, because already in the force there are less women as compared to men. However, what is important for us to note is that even when it comes to the eligible pool, even though the picture looks like that, we do have good practices. And these good practices include enabling policies. We have a gender strategy, as Deb has already said. We do have the gender policy. When you look at the peace support policy, we do have a section on gender. And at the same time, there is a policy on recruitment and retention. The police force really tries its best to recruit and retain. However, we also looked at the fact that there are reasons as to why women are less, and they keep becoming less. What is also critical is that there is a welfare office for women, which means that women to go. And also very important for us, the Uganda Police Force is also having its sexual harassment policy, which actually handles the sexual harassment concerns. So we are looking at also the fact that gender is mainstreamed in the very good practices. And you're going to find that when you compare the men and women, while for the women, these issues are coming up and household constraints, with the men, what is really shouting out are really issues around the deployment criteria, as you will see. And when it comes to these barriers, Deputy IGP, I would like to emphasize that the women are underrepresented. But this representation is also partly because the existing goods are not being implemented fully. When we asked about the policies and their implementation plan, we did not see the implementation plan of these policies. And that's really something that the police force should look at. But at the same time, there are also very limited slots. So even if the Uganda Police Force would wish to take more women, the UN gives us very limited slots. And what are we recommending? We are recommending that we establish strategies that encourage women to join the Uganda Police Force. And part of these strategies, we said you could have an outreach program in the second police force. And part of these strategies, we said you could have an outreach program in the secondary school, where already by that stage of nurturing, you encourage girls to join the forces and also present the forces positively in institutions of higher learning. That way, we shall be able to improve our eligible pool. At the same time, we are also recommending that the Uganda Police Force strengthens the ownership of the policies so that they are able to be implemented. And to the UN, we are saying, please, like Oliver Twist, increase the numbers that you give to Uganda, because Uganda has the capacity to deploy as many as possible. Issue area number 2 was the deployment criteria. And in the deployment criteria, we were looking at whether women meet the general requirements for peacekeeping. What are the good practices here? The good practices on the deployment criteria for the Uganda Police Force include that the UPF has a peace good practices here. The good practices on the deployment criteria for the Uganda Police Force include that the UPF has a peace support policy, which stipulates very critical issues around women's involvement. Part of it, they have a focal person for gender mainstreaming. They have all peace support processes and engendered. Then there is special capacity building and bridging programs for women. Those are really the good practices. Also, the UPF Peace Support Office provides pre-deployment training. So when there is a call for deployment, that's actually calls on people and gives them the pre-deployment, especially after the pre-AMS. And because of this, you see that these are very good practices. Also, the Uganda Police Force was found to be one of the very networked government organizations. What I mean by this is that the UPF has many collaborations with external and internal partners. And this way, the Uganda Police Force is able to actually promote engendered practices. But what are the barriers? The barriers to the deployment criteria include insufficient resourcing, operational costs. And when we say insufficient resourcing, we are looking at the fact that the Peace Support Office has lean staff, and so not able to ensure that they can really carry through this. And the budget that is sent for them to prepare was not clearly given to us, but it was clear from the responses that it is insufficient. There are also gaps in some skills areas, especially for women. And critical among them was the driving for manual cars. This is really affecting women, and also operation of the heavy artillery or machinery. And when it comes to women, we also found that some of them are really weak in ICT skills and also report writing. And these actually affect them and bring about the low proficiency levels. And that way, when they are able to actually make it to the final list because of some of these weaknesses. But there is also a lack of self-efficacy and self-limiting beliefs. We realize that some women actually do not even want to try. We were also told that some are even good for appointing an RPC, and you run to the appointing authority and please don't appoint me, I'm comfortable where I am. So that lack of self-efficacy, some women don't believe in the opportunity for us. This is not to say that all women are doing that, but we found confessing that I would rather sit and keep my home than go in those offices of RPC because they are so busy, they will move you and you don't have time for yourself. But also there are those that just fear. And this is originally the UPF was a patriarchal force whereby even for the men, you had to have a certain size of chest and a certain height in order to be recruited. But that has with time gone. Now we're only talking about dealing with the self-efficacy. How do we get the police women believe in themselves that they can do it? We have seen actually some champions who actually are very good, and they will stand and speak and say, if a man can do it, I can do it. And in this one, it is not the Uganda Police Force to actually blame, it is our nurturing and upbringing that sometimes we don't believe in ourselves. What are our recommendations? Establish the Peace Support Operations Training Center. And in this training center, we should have a holistic training approach where we have issues of financial management, where we have issues of self-esteem, get people to believe in themselves, and also skills like driving the manual cars, ICTs in addition to others, and of course the general UN policing issues. But also it is very important that since these people are going to areas that are actually under conflict, it is very important that they also have some training in the conflict resolution and management. We also said, drawing on the good practices from our neighbors, consider establishing an all-female contingent, whereby they should follow the same kind of training as a police officer, because we learned that they are prepared to actually deal with issues out there, not as a man or a woman, but as a police officer. The kind of environment they are preparing them for dictates that we should prepare them as police officers. However, let us be a little bit more deliberate and have a female contingent that will actually push it further for the others. Then we are also saying that establish uniformed women's network, a network that brings together women, police women, past and present, senior and junior, so that the others can mentor. It's really a mentorship program, which we found lacking. There is no officially established, though we also discovered there are also other pockets of mentorship, but the police force can make it official to have senior women mentor the juniors. And when I say juniors here, I respect every rank, but I hope I'm very well understood. Then we have the deployment selection as issue area 3. We have good practices, and these include affirmative action during recruitment. It was found that actually the Uganda Police Force, when they are recruiting and there are women who qualify, they first push all of them through. And even where the pass mark could be 60 and the woman is missing by 2, they have a policy that they call 60 plus 2. Now, the men don't feel bad about this. It is really a very good practice that has seen the women get there. And I'm hoping that no one misquotes me to say women are favored. That's not what the finding is saying. The finding is saying there is affirmative action. And this affirmative action is actually national. So they are only implementing what the Uganda government has put in place. At the same time, we do see barriers such as access to information. The Uganda Police Force has the WTI, but most of the time, people, especially in the rural areas, get the information very late. Some even get the information after the recruitment has taken place. We found that when we asked people how they get their information, the majority got their information from social media. And you find that when people are really upcountry, issues of network come in. So if the network is not good, that means they will not get that information. However, that there is laxity on the part of some team leaders, that when the information comes, they don't actually relay it immediately. And that has also affected the access to information. And the other barrier that we saw are high expenses and hidden costs. High expenses and hidden costs are associated with deployment. I will speak about this without any spec so that I see it properly. When it comes to high expenses, they were talking about the fact that when these people are coming for the pre-deployment process or the pre-deployment interviews, the pre-AMS, they take care of their own costs. And at the end of the day, it becomes very expensive for them. We were having a conversation on what we found in the field vis-a-vis what the headquarters knows. One, it was clear no one is asked to pay in order to get into the pre-AMS. However, the people have those other, what we call hidden expenses, in the sense that before they go the manual driving, they want to test. But the police does not have enough vehicles to help them test. And I think the police training school does not train the driving bit of it. So at the end of the day, they hire out vehicles. They have to hire where they sleep. They have to eat. At the same time, they need a permit. They need their own passports. So most of these hidden costs are not really on the side of the police, but they are personal. In fact, in one dissemination, when we were validating the report, someone asked me, who among you, when they are going to work at a restaurant, runs to the next hotel to say, let me go and practice before I go for the interview? So meaning that some costs are self-imposing, but we don't also rule out the fact that some people were insisting that they had to pay in order to get involved. And indeed, when we had a conversation with the Peace Support Office, this is not official. That is a mindset of some people who prefer not to enter through the main door. I'm quoting the words of senior police officers. There is also a barrier on pre-qualification requirements. For example, delayed deployments. You find that someone passes an interview, but after passing, they have to wait in the system for 2 years. And after waiting for 2 years, they expire. So they have to do it again. So this was a major barrier too. And then the non-transparent process. What we mean by the non-transparent process, according to the survey, a total of 42% respondents were of the view that the selection processes are not fully transparent. And this is because they were insinuating that they look at your name to know your tribe, your religion matters, but in a follow-up interview, we were actually informed that at this selection process, your name is not on the script, and there is no touch between the trainers and the exams. So there was that perception, which we call the perception, and the Uganda Police Force has to deal with that perception to ensure that those who think they are being disadvantaged actually know that it is about your skills. And you'll find that later, when we ask people, how did you go for peace support operations? None of them, it was 0% who said, I went because I knew someone. So that was 0%, which matched actually what the senior officers were telling us, that actually that does not happen. So it is really a perception within the force that has to be dealt with. And stereotypes. And just bias on the side of women. For example, there are some unique challenges that women face, but there are also times recently happened to the UPDF, don't even try. So unconscious bias and stereotypes where they will say you can't run if there is danger, you cannot stand that heat, is also a barrier in terms of the deployment selection. But what are our key recommendations? The UPF should review and improve its communication strategy and framework. I have to commend the media team of the Uganda Police Force at this point. When we started this study, it was not as active as we see actually the media team very active on social media. So we do acknowledge that there are really great steps in improving the communication. We are also saying in order to mitigate the expenses, the hidden costs, you should decentralize the entire process. Make it regional, especially the pre-AMS. Let it go regionally so that people can do interviews within their regions, and then those that qualify will be the ones to come for that one center that the UN puts up. Then the UPF should address the pre-qualification requirements that are currently stringent to women. And of course, this has to emphasize the fact that the affirmative action should cut across, but also prepare women for the occasion. Make sure that the women are clearly prepared through our training center that we talked about. Then to ensure transparency, there should be, in the selection process, we should try to digitalize as much as possible. If you can do some of those things by digital so that people are confident that actually it's not a human being doing this, it is the best that can happen. Issue area number 4, I will take it faster, household constraints. What are the good practices? The UPF has a gender policy and we have a gender strategy. And certainly when we asked people how many of them know about this gender strategy and what it says, it is not really disseminated. So not many of them know what is there, but the policy is there, a very good policy. Another good practice is that there is spousal and family support for childcare. We responses where policemen have actually encouraged, and also the police leadership has encouraged husbands of police women to allow them go for peacekeeping. So that spousal support and also family support from their households, the Peace Support Office informed us that they actually called the family and speak to them, which is a good practice by the police. Then the UN policy is also a very good practice, and it is fully implemented by the Uganda Police Force. But what are the barriers? We have gendered perceptions of the women's role. We do still have people who believe that women should be in the kitchen, and that affects. So when you say you're going for peacekeeping, it is the fellow women who will ask you first, so who are you leaving your husband with? And when it becomes a problem further, if your neighbor is a young, beautiful girl with a very nice body, it becomes even harder for these police women to go for peacekeeping, because the expression that was used is that you don't extend ghee close to the fire. So at the end of the day, those gendered perceptions, and some actually were asked, so who's going to take care of your children? At that point, they became the women's children. So no one is there to take care of those children, and that way it became a major barrier. At the same time, social pressure. And this social pressure is from everywhere, internally and externally. but most especially from our community, where the women are not actually expected to leave home and go elsewhere. Then there are household dynamics and power hierarchies. Household dynamics in the sense that the man remains the man and is in charge of the home, but at the same time, you find that they get threatened, I underline that, by the prospects of women's improved financial status. So when the men think of what the women are going to get out there, they block them. So those those power hierarchies affect women and they are not able to go. But also I want to put a disclaimer there. There was also, for example, we have a quote. Someone says, my husband was supportive at the start, but changed in the middle. I saw in his actions, he thought I was going to, end of quote. This really came up. We had during the validation someone saying, if she goes and comes with her 100 million, when she comes home, she will not see your little money putting on the table. I want to quote it locally, Kameza money does not make sense to the women, and they feel more powerful when they have money. So our finding really was that sometimes also the way the women behave, when they have got some finances, it becomes a barrier. So they lose the support of men. When one man sees the experiences of a fellow man, they say, I will not go into that. She would rather stay here and we remain peaceful than me sending her and she gets the money and becomes very powerful. But what we realized here, and we quote that we realized a similar incident when we were carrying out a baseline survey on the uptake of the 1325. It is a misunderstanding and misperception of what actual empowerment is on both the side of men and on the side of women. So we need to have a genuine conversation around what really empowerment is. What are our key recommendations? Accelerate the operationalization of the policies, especially the gender policy section 5.2, and also the peace support policy. These will help to increase the women in peace operations. Also popularize United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325. It was sad to find that not many police officers know about that resolution. And I know that the UN has been carrying out projects with the police around this resolution. So we have to be clear also in our training school to have some clear content on the resolution 1325 and other resolutions that came after there that promote women's engagement. Then ensure that there is a concerted effort to involve different players and stakeholders, such as the police leadership, male champions, cultural leaders, religious leaders, in demystifying the role of a woman and what a woman can do. We need a concerted effort. And of course, we are not forgetting ourselves at school. In the academia, we also do contribute to that. Establish a training center. That is coming back. And when you see it coming back, Deputy IGP, it will come back and come back and come back, and I'll conclude around it. Then issue area number 5, peace operation infrastructure. Here, the good practice was, in Uganda, we have an established Department of Peace Support Operations. However, we were complaining and saying, given the magnitude of this work, it needs to grow from a mere department to a directorate. That's how they'll be able to actually serve. And when it comes to concerns out there are privacy concerns of women officers while at deployment. Sometimes, especially where the conflict-prone zones are, they are put in the same compound. Women and men are in the same compound. And when they're in the same compound, your FAB is just next to a man, and the privacy is really kind of compromised. And also when the men decide here that you're living in your unit and your neighbor is a man, it affects those who would wish to go. They would rather not send their women to somewhere where their units are close to others. But this, I will underline, is very common with AU missions, not UN missions. It is with the AU missions and Also, issues of the infrastructure for pre-deployment training is lacking. Now this is in Uganda. While there is that training that happens, the Uganda Police Force has no clear school for training people who would wish to go for deployment. And that is really a major barrier in terms of peace operations infrastructure. So what are our key recommendations? Continue to explore opportunities for facilities, and I know that the UN has done tremendously on this, engendering all facilities, and we are only calling upon the AU to do the same. Then in recommendation number 2, UPF should consider again putting up the Peace Support Operations Training Center. Why? Because that way we should be able, having the pre-deployment, having that center will improve. And we are also center introduce also languages, because one of the issues why Uganda is left out, we have but if at the training center we introduce French in more missions. Issue area, peace operations experiences. The good practices is that there is expansion of professional and social networks. In their own way, the people who have been in peace support operations or peacekeeping operations have formed their little families where they share experiences, and they are able to unofficially share experiences with those who would wish to go. Then there is also a good practice, because remember it is experiences, the financial gain and prosperity. Those who come back tell good stories about the financial gain, but we shall be quarreling about how some people use that money. Sometimes when they get it, it's a windfall. They have not got it before. They run to buy the car, and within 3 months, the car needs fuel, but the money was used to buy the car. So training center should be able to address some of those critical issues. And then exposure and acquisition of new ideas. That's also a good practice. Those who go for peace support operations and peacekeeping operations are exposed, and they come back with new ideas. But what are the key barriers? They are relationship challenges. Experience shows that many, when they return, their families break up. And when others see broken families, they prefer not to try, and that becomes a barrier. And then there are also dietary concerns. We also found that in the UN missions, people cook their own food and they buy their own food. Sometimes in the AU missions, given the security status, they will serve you frozen food, and people feel the diet is just too much. But we also put a disclaimer that it's after all, it's a peacekeeping or peace support mission. So these dietary concerns are there. Then one incident, someone indicated that their unrest days were reduced, but this was clearly demystified with the majority. But we had to capture it because we are researchers. We bring you everything as it is. So the days were reduced, but it was later found that this was a COVID period and this person had overstayed. But policy has it that officers who go for missions must rest. This has to be clearly emphasized. The other barrier that we saw is that these missions are rankless. So the senior officers prefer to stay than going, and then they fall under the leadership or the command of a junior officer while on mission. And because the missions are rankless, we are only saying that the senior officers should know what they qualify for, and those who are willing to go should be aware that you can fall under your junior because it has to do with your capacity. But at the same time, senior officers must present themselves for those opportunities of leadership when they come up. Because we saw that some of them don't present themselves, then the junior officers present themselves. Before you know it, you're waking up and you're under the command of your junior officer. So that also was something that we are recommending, that pick a list from other countries and sensitize and clarify on the levels and ranks for the different categories of deployment. Let the officers know so that they are not hurt when they go. This can happen. Then as part of the targeted recruitment activities for women into peace support operations, adopt the concept of brand ambassadors. Let them tell the positive stories, not only the stories of the winner. That's why we talk about conflict resolution and mitigation, should be clear in that training center, so that at the end of the day, the peace mission, engagement in peace missions does not become a problem. Bear with me, I'm on issue 7. Issue 7 is career value. Here we're asking, after the mission, how does this benefit you? The good practices is that the Uganda Police Force actually, in the Uganda Police Force, as far as career value is concerned, when they are assessing your skills going promoted, some of these are also assessed as part of their long process of promotion criteria. Then another good practice is that while people are there, they are added on to their career growth because they acquire new skills. So that's a good practice. What are the barriers? There are limited opportunities for progression. So someone will come and say, but I was at the mission, I know ABCD, but because, we have limited slots at the ABCD, but because, we have limited slots at the top, they tend not to go. So let's be deliberate on how to tap into those gained experiences and new ideas while people are at mission. So the UPF should consider peacekeeping experiences as one of the criteria. You may consider, and it's clearly saying may. Then revise the peace support policy to include transparent redeployment. We realize that some people refuse to go because when they return, they are not sure of getting those offices. So if I'm an RPC, I would rather stay here and have my little man as RPC than going on mission, and then when I come back, I don't get back my leadership position. So we are saying that, put that clearly, how are people reinserted into the force when they return? I'm glad to report that in a follow-up interview, we found that this is a story of the past. Last year and this year, people were deployed immediately. So let's just get that practice and put it on paper so that there is a clear policy on the matter. Then respondents indicated that there should be a dedicated sessions on career guidance for officers. Career guidance, pre and post deployment. What does it mean to go for mission, and what can you gain out of that? In terms of the top-down leadership, which is issue 8, the good practice is we saw through the existing policies that there is commitment from the UPF to increase women's representation in peacekeeping operations. However, barriers, limited resourcing of the gender strategy. We didn't find any budget for actually implementing that gender strategy. Then also, women's voices are missing at the decision-making table. By the time we did our study, was among the top leaders. And we are saying that if they are not there, have women on the table, not at the table. And also when it came to the selection committee of those who go for peace operations, most are men. And we were told that we co-opt women when we are going to select. And the church is saying, don't co-opt. Put them there substantively. Because when you're co-opted, you have limited ways of contributing. But let them substantively be there. And also on the time of one woman in the top leadership, we were actually informed that the growth of the women determines how you get there. So now we are glad that many women are growing into the ranks, and we are promised that in the next, by the time the gender strategy expires, in 2025, be a very good representation of women, and we pray to see that. Recommendations: increase the budgetary allocations and also put in place deliberate actions to mentor women into leadership. There should be deliberate action that you're looking at so and so who's being mentored to rise. Issue area number 9, gender roles. This was also a high significant issue area where we are looking at the good practices, again, the policies, which actually address historical imbalances. When you look at the gender strategy and the gender policy, they are really trying to address historical imbalances. What are the barriers? Our gender roles are really, we have stereotypes around them, where women's engagement in combat roles is still not well taken up. Also, the levels of awareness of some of the critical policies is low. I mentioned that. There are also negative attitudes towards women in the UPF. And these negative attitudes come from the community. When they see a female police officer, then they have a lot of pictures that they draw in the brain. Then you're a police officer, you're supposed to be on the road, but at the same time also your child can fall sick. If you run to the hospital, anything can happen. So this is really a barrier. How do we balance the family and work life for the officers? When we ask who actually is the biggest caretaker in the house, mother was at 46%, both parents was at 22%, father at 14%, the nanny at 10%, other family members 7%, and others at 1%. This clearly shows that the women actually have that issue on their backs. One informant says, well, like I'm still going back to the social construction gender roles. When women get affected so much in times of war affects women differently, and we know this. So at the end of the day, rather than go to a war zone, they prefer to stay home and actually take care of the family. What are our key recommendations? The key recommendation is that debunk the widely held negative gender stereotype about women in serving in security agencies or forces. Then, as indicated, operationalize family-friendly policies. We have many of these in the gender strategy, and that will promote the work-life balance. Then there is also need for sensitizations and trainings to debunk the misunderstandings around women empowerment by both men and women. Finally, issue area 10, which scored low by significance with social exclusion. This as to whether someone is excluded in terms of their gender or religion or anything. Critical, we saw a very good, again, policy area where there is enough policy to deal with issues of sexual harassment. And when we read out the survey, many indicated that men and women in the police force are officially treated equally. So if you actually be treating a woman unequally, then you actually face disciplinary action. What are the barriers? Police or female individual officers have been excluded due to limited access to information. We alluded to this in terms of communication, especially when they are from the rural areas. But also, we saw issues of cultural bias. Some of the people who may choose also end up getting entangled into the cultural bias. Then some respondents alluded to favoritism, particularly some people, they said, are deployed more than once. Some people go back often. So they feel some of these people are favored. It was, however, explained that people aren't necessarily favored, but sometimes the mission requests for them to go back. And it is not about the UPF. So what are some of our key recommendations? As earlier indicated, review the information channels, and also, as earlier suggested, digitalize and decentralize the processes. And finally, stipulated in an earlier report on the importance that all concerned address social exclusion in peacekeeping and peace operations. Once it is detected, it must be dealt with decisively. Friends, those are the 10 key issue areas. And as I indicated from the start, 5 of them are dealt with decisively. Friends, those are the 10 key issue areas. And as I indicated from the start, 5 of them are really high areas. And this is where, as researchers, we are encouraging the Uganda Police Force to concentrate on the high barriers so that they can also reduce and mitigate the issues they're in. Deputy IG and Vice President, we strongly believe that most of these barriers will definitely be dealt with if the police puts up a training center for UN peace operations, and preferably an independent training center that can actually take care of most of the concerns from the UN and the LC, the funders. And more specifically and more especially, I will thank the Uganda Police Force for entrusting the Rotary Peace Center. Allow me at this point emphasize that this was not a one-man show. I'll request the researchers to stand up for recognition, including Dr. Veneranda. Keep up, I have to treat. I'm concluding. In this team, we do who actually represent research assistants. It's our policy and practice. We use our students, both graduate and undergraduate. So these are represented. Those who were to the research assistants, raise your hands. Research assistant, Makerere University, Chambogo University. Julius, I think you did research. Then we have my head of department, Dr. Veneranda Mbabazi, was a principal researcher, and Mr. Simon Masiga, who is a PhD candidate. So we use both graduate and graduate. And the people who have really been in the kitchen, I'll ask the rest to sit, and the 3 project officers remain standing. Those in the kitchen, I'll ask the rest to sit, and the 3 project officers remain standing. Those are the people who have been in the kitchen in terms of running this project. I was only a principal investigator, and anything that went well, they are responsible. Anything that did not go well, I'm responsible. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Helen Nambali-Rankabada from Makerere University and your team. Thank you very much for that very well-researched Professor Helen Nambali-Rankabada from Makerere University and your team. Thank you very much for that very well-researched presentation. Our DIGP, our chief guest, please allow me to comment that I've just returned from mission. I returned in March, and I still accept Kameza money. I still do, very much, actually, more now than ever before. That money disappears. I still accept. That money goes, you don't even know where it has gone. But on a serious note, sir, in the mission, November, in South Sudan, they put a limitation to women. If you do not have driving skills, if you cannot drive the manual transmission, you will arrive in the mission, but you will not be deployed. So this is very timely, and we encourage that we shall find solutions to that, sir. Thank you very much, sir. I would like to also recognize on that note, sir, from different media houses, please stand up for recognition. If you are close by, if you're not, put up your camera, but we have them with us, our chief guest. I would like to request the band to play for us an interlude just before I invite the chief guest to come and pass his remarks, but also to officially launch this assessment report. Thank you very much, sir. feel free to invite the band to your home. Whenever you have an event, the band is available. On that note, please allow me to invite our Deputy IGP, our Chief, to come and give us his remarks. And I would like to request to stand up. Thank you very much. It's our culture to be respectful, and sir, we welcome you.
Please sit, please. She's still tough, but we take it easy here. This initiative fund secretariat, the UN Women Uganda country representative, here represented by Madame Adekemi, the Vice Chancellor, Makerere University, presented every by our good professor. You can put me, I was between very powerful ladies. I'm still sweating, but you accept that. The representatives of Gender, Labor and Social Development, representatives of other agencies here, of police, senior officers of various agencies, the researchers of Makerere University, the members of the UN fraternity here present, and all of you, good morning. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to represent the IGP, who would have loved to be here, but because of other engagement, he has delegated me to come and present his views. It is noted here that the police force submitted a letter of interest responding to a call for funding proposals from the UN member states to be funded by ELSE initiative, support the meaningful participation of uniformed personnel, the uniformed female officers in the UN peace. The funding request was assented to, and consequently, UPF, in partnership with Makerere University, commenced the research in March 2022 that was supposed to be concluded in February 2023. However, an extension was requested for, and here it is concluded, and it has been reported to you. The first findings, as presented by the researchers, you have all heard. In my opinion, this was a well-researched paper, and we need to clap for the researchers. They have done a commendable work. Here and there, we might not agree with them 100%. However, we respect their opinion. Now, I'm happy to note that the study identified some good practices which already exist in the force, like established policies. We indeed have a number of policies, as you rightly pointed out. The implementation could be at different levels, but the policies do exist. Challenge to all of us is to ensure that these policies are implemented so that they achieve their purpose. Infrastructure and training by the PSO. Here, of course, the request was that we need to put up a peace support operation center. That request is correct, and we are already in the process of formally establishing one, although we have one, but we are going to build a peace support operation center. so that we address this and many other requests. So that, because we are a professional force, and training is what sharpens the force. So in this capacity, when we are looking at peace support operation, it is indeed an operation, a dangerous operation to that, and therefore for us we take it seriously. Those are regulations that people have managed to go there. I think they may be misplaced, because it is indeed not a tea party. You must have seen right from a number of years, and those who study peace support operations in UN look at the attrition of the forces that are deployed therein. It is not a tea party. It's not a tea party. But we must put up a structure. The identified barriers, which include household constraints, deployment criteria, deployment selection, gender roles, eligible pool, and so on, were indeed well pointed out. The challenges have already been brought out of these issues, but we, as police, first of all, as we understand that in any peace support operation, the biggest vulnerable communities are the women and children. The initial deployment used to emphasize male deployment of the peacekeeping officers. Studies like these were carried out and realized that there are more women refugees, there are more children refugees, and the men are not able to handle such a situation. So it is critical that therefore you employ ladies to address the fundamentals of that peace operation. Because men may not do well when it comes to some of those issues of women who have run out, who are refugees, who are displaced personnel, on. You find the studies show that the ladies do better in such a field. So you obviously identified that and emphasized the deployment of female officers. Indeed, the female officers have done well, and particularly police officers who have done well, we appreciate, and we shall always encourage you, train you, and ensure that you are chosen. And in the time of choosing, time of selection, because police as a force, a security force, we actually don't care much whether you are a female or a male. We look at performance, right from training. So the ladies here present, including big people here from UN and the professor and all these professors, we have one challenge. Because they say, for you, a lady, what do you call it? You are that soft part, you call it? Is that? Huh? When you're compared to a man, you are a weak. I don't know. Do they call it weak? No. No, these men also. To the extent that for you, you only handle and you should be treated like a glass. Right from birth through school, that the ladies should be handled a bit more carefully than men. That's a bad background. Then we go to our training. Some ladies want to be handled like a glass in training. What comes out, you pass out as a glass. don't deploy glasses. We deploy metal. So if you fail at the training level to appreciate that you must measure up and you expect promotion, I will not be part of that. So me, I want to, it is true, you brought it out properly, but we as ladies, we as female officers, to you here and for those that you lead, you must tell them, we are a security force, we are a fighting force, we have monopoly of violence, we are not a glass. Therefore, right from the way you start, you must measure up to perform as a security officer. So this complaint at the deployment level that you are not considered could be that you don't measure up. Some of you pay attention to your hair more than the time. I call a meeting here. Somebody says, you know, my makeup was misplaced, so I am late. No, please. That cannot happen. Then too, of course, what you pointed out today, societal prejudices is still exists in all of us. Still exists, and we have to fight it now that we are talking about gender sensitivity. As men who receive ladies, there is that perception that the ladies don't perform. So we are still fighting that also in the force. Ladies perform. Ladies perform. You have seen ladies elsewhere. Lady pilots are there. Ladies who drive tanks, you have seen them. Ladies who are commanding here in police. There are a number of other pieces here. There are a number of heads of department who are doing serious work. And that's why we recommend them for the meal. The issue of, of course, the ladies are heavily burdened by family management, no doubt. We all think that the children should be looked after by the wife. I don't know whether there is vice versa, that you look after the wife. That's how it should be. So that is heavy, as the professor pointed out, in terms of who goes where. Professor pointed out, you ask yourself, how will I look after these children? Myself looked after. I don't know about the neighbor she was talking about. That young lady over there, I don't know. Maybe she has a point. Are we going to create a new neighborhood for the man we are leaving behind? But you also, men, can you control yourself? For only 12 months or something like that. Some of it is perception, some of it is discipline. And because we are all brought up in that patriarchal family. But again, it depends on how you relate between you and the husband. I'm sure it has an effect. Because if he's not troubled, if you are now going out, what would happen here? Must be building. Then the financial, which you emphasized very well. Our PLO was saying she's still accepting the Kameza money. This Kameza thing is degrading. I don't know how you look at it. Why should it be a man to leave the Kameza? Recently, I heard there is a big lady somewhere, and is a driver. This woman earns almost 20 times the salary of the husband. But she's insisting that for Kameza, I don't know. Maybe UN representative would help us here. I don't know whether the Kameza, the other side also, you insist that the Kameza should be. There is this tendency that the man's money is for the family, but the woman's money is for her. Do you still have that? That for me, marry must go to the home man. My wife. That one is a no-go area. I should not say, how much do you earn, madam? That is classified. But mine should be put on the table. That I heard you also get sitting around. That today didn't you sit? But even if she earns, she doesn't want to declare. I'm not alleging, I'm raising this as a problem. Now, if your money, which has been little in police here in Kampala, is not known, is not shared, what is the point if I allow you to go and get millions in Mogadishu? What is that million going to help us as family? I'm sure, but you brought it out actually. You brought it out. So, I think we need also to have a family discussion. This is not general, but as a family, we must be as much as possible transparent in as far as family income is concerned. And who contributes that family income must be addressed in order to remove that difficulty by men allowing you officers, lady officers, to go out there. I don't know whether somebody can volunteer. Who can? No, she was depending on the family was depending on the man. You see, that's where the problem is. That's where the problem is. And we need to address this issue very squarely. And we appreciate the report. We hope it is going to make a difference. Because a number of recommendations were very critical to adopt it. We sincerely thank us from LC Initiative Fund, from UN Women Country Representative, the fund holders and other partners, and sincerely thank Makerere University Rotary Peace Center for conducting this enriching research. Police force promises to collaborate with all of you, our partners, stakeholders, and well-wishers in the full implementation of this report. These recommendations are going to be implemented, and hopefully they will improve the capacity of the police force as well as our lady officers and when they are deployed, and even the process of their selection. The recommendations will greatly supplement other broader regulatory and guiding frameworks, seek promote women participation in peace support operations. We've addressed a number of these which we are looking at, where the issues of performance, we have discussed it. The issues of promotion should take into consideration the experience in peacekeeping. I think we do. We do consider that as part of your work performance, work experience. The dietary concerns is where we might have difficulty, because obviously that is not that's we cannot control what happens in the mission. But prepare yourselves. You must prepare to eat frozen food. You can start getting used. I don't know where to get this frozen food or any other food that is in peace support operations. This might not be the ordinary food here, but that's part of the sacrifice you are going into. Gentlemen, I have the honor to launch the report titled Uganda Police Force 2023, report on results of the measuring opportunities for women in peace operation assessment for my country. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Very much, sir, our DITP and chief guest. I would like to invite you and the friends who are with us at the High Court to come and sign the dummy of the report. Thank you very much, our chief guest and our very important friends and sponsors and partners for taking part in this launch. We are very happy. partners for taking part in this launch. We are very happy. It's going to be very colorful in the pictures. I can already see. I would like to request that we will go for a group photo, but before we do that, let's stand up and have the closing anthems. The group. Thank you very much. I would like to guide sir that the group will move out in reverse. Will move out in reverse order, and let's go there as fast as we can, but respectfully. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you everybody for coming here and for attending this launch. We appreciate your presence. Thank you. Yes, we will after the group photo, please return and as per the program, let's have the team again. We appreciate you.